Can we please talk about this? Because the betting markets, right, the political polling sites, these are less reliable than polls, okay, these betting markets. Polymarket is largely owned by Peter Thiel, a very, very close ally of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance.
Yes.
Explain to us how these political prediction markets work, how broken they are, and explain to me why people are paying so much attention to them.
No, it is frightening, and it's perhaps because we're so disappointed in polling not being very predictive. If there's actually something worse than polling and worse than weather forecasting, it's these markets. They don't predict anything. Even Mark Cuban, who is an investor, as he admits, in Peter Thiel, who was the founder in his fund in Polymarket. There's a kid, a 25, 26-year-old kid, Steve Copeland, I think is his name, who's actually running this. And he was hanging out. He's friends with the Trump family, hanging out with them at the RNC and partying with them. Is that this thing is so subject to manipulation. We came out with the piece that I'm glad you mentioned that Anthony Scaramucci and I wrote back for Time magazine. And we thought they won't take it because who would believe this thing doesn't work? It's just a quantitative illusion. And the bro culture believes if they're numbers, that means it's science.
But I hear it all over. People, the betting markets, the betting markets. And when they're not talking about Polymarket, they're talking about Donald Trump's media company, DJT, right? Which I can't wait until we get the next earnings report. Like, what are they going to make more money than a diner in my hometown? This is a company that does absolutely nothing. It's an empty vessel for Donald Trump to post on social media. Yet the stock has been all over the place this week. And to me, this is an extraordinarily easy way to curry a favor, to curry a direct favor with Donald Trump. And unlike a political contribution, when you lose money and you have to take a loss, you get to write it off.
I take that as a twofer because there is a link between both those topics that a lot of viewers might not realize.
Explain.
Forget these markets. Polymarket is it has very little liquidity, and the others have even less than that. And it's so subject to manipulation, and you can't, as an American, legally bet on Polymarket. It's been driven out of the country as being illegal. So the other one, there are 4 other sites. Robin has a new one, and Interactive Brokers has a new one. There's another one called Kalshi. And those you can bet in the U.S., but it's a couple $1,000s. You could throw the whole market for the price of a used Kia. You can manipulate the market. And you don't have to be an American. Only Robinhood, you have to be an American. So who's doing this betting? Obviously, it's somebody from Iran or China or Russia, whatever, is throwing these markets. So what's a good predictor since these things, and by the way, they've never predicted. You go back the last 6 cycles, election cycles, they couldn't have been more wrong. They predicted Romney was going to win. They predicted, Hillary Clinton was going to, and Joe Biden was going to lose last time. They got it consistently wrong. They get the red wave wrong. So why bother with them? What you should invest in is pay attention to the unwinding of the Trump trade. Just since this regrettable, horrific, hate-filled rally at Madison Square Gardens, DJT, the Donald J. Trump, which of course is Truth Social, that's plunged 30%. But what else has plunged this week? Everything is down. All the Trump trade, from oil is down to guns are down to proprietary prisons are down. They're all down 10% or more. That's because they're unraveling the Trump trade. They don't believe it. And by the way, the alt-right stocks are a disaster too. Rumble is down like 60%. That's J.D. Vance's big investment, Rumble, which is a media stock. Strive, Ramaswamy's fund is lost, about 20% of its assets. American Conservative Values has lost about 20%. But even this one site that is supposed to be the dating site for the alt-right.
For conservatives.
It's got about 100 people, and I think the rumors are that it's mainly guys looking to meet women, but it's all guys. There are only 100 people on the site, and that thing's about ready to go bust. And
so we know Trump and Trump-related stocks are down. Polymarket, easily manipulatable. So let's talk about something we know and trust, like The Economist. Not a left-leaning liberal paper, magazine. This week, The Economist officially endorsed Kamala Harris, and they had this warning in it, warning that a second Trump term holds, quote, unacceptable risk. What do you make of that argument?
Well, and Zany Beddoes, who is the editor-in-chief, is no wild lefty. You're exactly right. The Economist has always stood for classic liberal, as they call it, British liberal, which means free markets and individual rights. And that what they just see that the tailwinds, as she referred to it, the risk is so high of the volatility of Trump that he's seen as mercurial. He doesn't believe in the rule of law. And this is the same reason why CEOs, of course, are so frightened, for the same reason that she, The Economist, and if you saw, there were several articles in the Wall Street Journal today, of all places, praising Trump. But
okay, this is what I want to talk about, because current CEOs are being very quiet, or even starting to praise Donald Trump because they're hedging their bets, because they know tariffs could be coming, because they don't want to get on his wrong side. However, 20 former CEOs that don't have to worry about the wrath of Donald Trump if he's president, or shareholders or employees, just laid out why they're backing Kamala Harris. I know you've been speaking to them. What are they telling you?
Well, and these guys, some of them are still they're not chairman of the board. They're not necessarily the CEO, and they're not the CEO anymore. They're on major boards. They're on the boards of Dell and Amgen and Microsoft and Regeneron, Goldman Sachs, Uber.
So they're still ballers.
So they're still major players. But they can speak freely because they don't have to worry about alienating half their shareholders or investors. And they say they're scared and they're not going to stand on the sidelines. They were particularly motivated to act after they saw the horrors, again, of what happened in Madison Square Gardens. They are not xenophobic. They believe in immigration. They know that half of the Fortune 500 are either led by immigrants or the first generation. And of tech companies that are startups that are valued over $1 billion, creating millions of jobs, that a third of them are founded by immigrants. They're not anti-immigration. Plus, they also know in construction and agriculture we need if 4% unemployment, nobody's jobs are being displaced. That's just Trumpaganda. Secondly, that these people are not protectionists. They believe in global markets. And finally, they really don't believe in this isolationism. So with all that, they really think that the rule of law is fundamental. They don't want to tear apart the fabric of society. They hate these wedge issues. So they're speaking out. But when there's a crisis, and frankly, off the record, just between we friends here, we have a number of CEOs ready to jump into action, as we did 4 years ago. Not retired CEOs, current CEOs, if we have a constitutional crisis, as we did in 2020, where President Trump declared that he was the winner when he wasn't. What happened before Speaker Pelosi and Senator McConnell or Schumer could congratulate the winners? It was these CEOs who spoke out. Xi Jinping and Bush 43 rather, and Netanyahu all used the CEO statement that we drafted together when the Pennsylvania election was certified end of that week. And
better get your pens ready. We may be in that same situation a week from now.